just the host of this evening's program. I'm Barb McKittrick, and I'm with the Forest Preserve District of Kane County. So welcome to one of our Nature Virtually Everywhere programs. We had to shift to doing things a little bit differently after mid-March when we had an unexpected virus pop up in our communities. So we're doing a lot of these. We're doing about one a week, different videos and Facebook Live events and webinars like this. And it's great for people to learn about nature and experience it from their own homes. So thanks for joining us today. You can look at the Forest Preserve District website for other programs if you like this one, and sign up for those. But without further ado, I want to turn it over to the real star of the show tonight, no pun intended, Bob King. And Bob's joining us all the way from Duluth, Minnesota. And we're just really happy to have him here tonight talking about Dazzled by the Night Sky. Bob, just a little bit of background before I turn it over to Bob. Bob King fell in love with the night sky and astronomy when he was just a kid, like some of the people we have on here today. He grew up in Illinois and he loves to share his passion with people of all ages. He was a photographer and a photo editor at the Duluth News Tribune for 39 years before retiring from the paper in 2018. When he's not outside soaking up starlight, he writes a regular astronomy blog called Astro Bob, as well as articles for the online magazine Sky and Telescope and its website. He's taught community education astronomy classes at the University of Minnesota Duluth Planetarium for many years. He's got several books. His books, Night Sky with the Naked Eye and Wonders of the Night Sky You Must See Before You Die, describe the joys of sky watching. Bob's third book, Urban Legends of Space, which published last fall, examines science versus pseudoscience in astronomy. One of his favorite quotes is, "The greatest wilderness is the one over your head. You only need to look up." So we're going to learn how to look up in different ways and make sense of what we're seeing up there with Bob's presentation. So before turning it over to Bob, I would ask those of you who have your cameras on, I can't turn those off on my end, but if you could go ahead and switch your video feeds off, I'm going to do the same. We're going to then leave it to Bob to talk and share some slides with you. Okay? I also want to encourage you, one last thing, if you have questions, a couple of you have already discovered the chat room, so you can hover towards the bottom of your screen to open up that chat area. And please ask questions. Bob welcomes questions during the presentation. If he doesn't see them, I'll feed some into him. If he doesn't get to them during the talk, we'll cover what's remaining at the end. All right. So Bob, I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Barb, and welcome everybody. It's nice. We are a big family now. I'm up in Duluth, but we're all in each other's rooms at the moment because we have one common purpose, and that is we love the sky and we like looking up. Even when you live in a place where sometimes there's a lot of light pollution and sometimes the stars are hard to see, and I'm going to give you a little help in that regard too towards the end of the presentation. I'm an amateur astronomer, and even though I retired from my work as a photographer, I have not retired from the sky. As a matter of fact, I can now spend more time looking at the sky if I want to, or if I want to get up at sunrise, I can do that too. So we are going to start the presentation here this evening talking about how to use an app, and I'm assuming that all of you have got that app on your phone right now. Some of you are Android users and some of you use iPhones. I use an iPhone. So the presentation will have images from an iPhone, but there's very, very similar to what you will see on an Android. And the biggest differences I will make a note of. So it should be pretty straightforward to use. The first thing I'd like you to do, assuming you've got your phone here, is to fire it up and to open up star chart. I've opened it up here on my phone. You can see it there. And I'll give you a second to do that. And I just use a basic phone. Your phone has a compass in it of some sort, and it will automatically pick up the application in there. Star Chart will find you, and it will know you're in the Chicago area, and it will show you the sky from Chicago, not the Bahamas, assuming it's working okay, of course. So I've set mine for Chicago, and I will show you how to set yours for wherever city in the world you may want to see the sky from too. So I'm going to assume you've got your phone fired up, the application is on, and what I want you to do is, if you first just take the phone and move it around the sky, you're going to see that the image on the phone is moving as you move. It's actually, if you point the phone to the sky, you're going to see what's in that direction. So if I point it to the south, I'm seeing some constellations in the southern sky, even though the sun is still up, right? What I'd like you to do is move your phone, turn it so that you are facing, turn it so that you're facing to the west. And as you face to the west, you should see the sun show up in your phone. Point it in that western direction. If you're having difficulty seeing the sun, if you don't know where it is, you're in your living room right now, that's okay. What I want you to do then is just take your finger and press it against the screen of the phone like that. Once you do, you control what direction you look in. So you don't have to turn yourself even. You can just put your finger on there and then slide the screen, drag it until you see the letter W. And you know what W stands for in the sky? That means west. So just slide the screen until you see west. And that's what it looks like, or it should look very close to that because I'm set up for your area too. My little W is down at the bottom of the screen. You can see the sun there, and there's a bright, what looks like a star near the sun. That's actually the planet Mercury. So I'd like for everyone's phone to be pointed to the west, and then take your finger, press it against the screen, and you will have control of what direction you look into. So you can move your finger whichever way you want and point, change the direction at the bottom of the screen. We're going to all sit down and face west. So with that, I'm going to go to the presentation. Here we go. It should look something like this. You've got your phone. You can see you're holding it vertically the normal way you would hold the phone. And there's the sun. It should be kind of near the bottom of your screen. There's the planet Mercury, the moon. There's a dashed line running through the screen. That's called the ecliptic. You don't have to know much about it except for the fact that the sun, the moon, and all the planets will always be found right along or very close to that dashed line called the ecliptic. They all follow the same path in the sky. Your phone, the constellation views, the names, it may be a little different from mine, but it should be quite similar in showing the same objects, the moon and the constellations that I see here, you should see. Bottom of your phone, you'll see W. This is a crucial line this is an important place. This is the horizon. The bright blue sky is what you see above the horizon. The horizon is the cutoff line. Below the horizon, it's dark. So that's how you know you're above or you're looking above and below the horizon. So you've got this view. As I told you earlier, you can drag the screen with a fingertip. You're placing west near the bottom. And then what I'd like you to do now is pinch in. Just pinch in on the phone, on that image. And that will give you the widest view. It will look like this. Okay? So you pinched in, and you should have a very similar view. Again, the horizon divides the bright blue part of the sky from this darker part. And the top of the sky is at the top of your phone. So it's basically showing you like a vertical window, a nice vertical slice of the sky, that particular slice that is in the west. We'll continue on to the next view here. What I'd like you to do is slide the image a little bit, drag it with your finger until you see in the west this big bright star. And when you see that star, I want you to then, oh, pardon me, I've jumped ahead. I want you to first change the time before we pick that star. Excuse me, the phone defaults. When you hold it up to the sky, the application is now. It shows the sky exactly right now. To change the time to a nighttime sky, we're going to tap in the upper right part of the phone. You'll see a clock there ticking away. Just tap it once and it will open up into the date and the time. You see that? So it says June 23rd, 2020. To the left of that is now. If you ever need to go back to this exact moment, just click on now. But we're at the time, June 23rd, 2020. And I want to point out that the time is not given in regular 6 o'clock p.m., 10 o'clock p.m. It's given in what's called 24-hour time. So midnight is 0 o'clock, 1 a.m. is 1 o'clock, 6 a.m. is 6, 12 noon is 12, 1 o'clock p.m. is 13, 21 is 9 o'clock, and 23 is 11 o'clock in the evening. And that's what I want you to set your phone to. And you just do that by using the scroller. It's a little finger scroller on the side. You scroll up. You can either tap the hours or you can tap the minutes and just slowly scroll up. It's really sensitive. If you scroll it fast, you will be quickly into the future. But if you just take your time and scroll up, you can arrive right at that time. If you're a couple of minutes one way or another because it's kind of sensitive, don't worry about it. Close enough to 11 is fine. When you do have your phone set at 11 p.m. and you are still facing to the west, you can see that down here near the bottom of the screen where your horizon is, you'll see a bright star there. That star doesn't have a name on my phone, but you can get the name and lots of information about any of the stars you see on your phone just by tapping it. Let's do that. We're going to drag the star to the center, and then you're going to tap it. And when you do, you'll see a little circle that kind of rolls around it. And down below, at the bottom of your phone, you'll see the name of the star, which is called Arcturus. Arcturus is a very close star to the Earth, about 37 light years away. It's very bright because it is close. It's a beautiful orange-red star. If you hold your phone up this evening at 11 o'clock, the western sky, about halfway between the horizon and the top of the sky, you're going to see Arcturus there. So if you tap on the name of the star down here, go ahead and tap that. You are going to get more information than you actually need, right? You've got how big it is, what the temperature of Arcturus is, how far away it is, and its exact position in the sky. Also, how high it is, 55 degrees. So to get back to the sky after you've absorbed all this fascinating information about Arcturus, you just take your fingertip and you swipe down. And that screen disappears. It drops out of the way. All right? So we're back to the normal sky. And what I want you to do next is we're going to take a little merry-go-round tour of the evening sky. We faced west, right? Now we're going to take and deliberately face south. Remember, every time you put your finger on the phone and use it, you are in control. You are the user, and you can make it point in any direction you want. So we're going to drag the screen now to the right to face south. You'll see the little letter S at the bottom of your screen, just above the horizon. Here's the ecliptic. There's that dashed path again. You're like, oh, okay, I know what that is. That is the path of the planets. And the path of the planets goes through Libra, the scales. That's a familiar zodiac constellation you might see in horoscopes. Scorpius, look at that, Scorpius the scorpion, and so on. So this is the southern sky. So this is a good view, very nice. Let's keep going. Let's stay on that little merry-go-round. Once again, we're still at 11 o'clock. Notice we're at 23:00, or close. All right, and we're going to keep going. We are going to pivot a little bit. We're not going to go actually all the way to the east, but we're going to stop in the southeast where it says SE down at the bottom of your phone. SE, southeast. And you'll notice that not far above the horizon is Saturn and Jupiter. Two bright planets in the evening sky. And they don't really get very high up, not at that early hour, but if you're out at around 11 o'clock or so, and you have a clear view to the southeast, you will see them down there. And further up above them, you'll see the constellation of Aquila, the Eagle. And if you go really high up, there's Lyra, the Harp, and Vega, a very bright star. We're going to meet Vega again in just a moment. Let's keep going. If you stop there, or I should say if we stay on Jupiter and Saturn for just a minute, and you take your fingers and you put them on the phone and spread them apart like this. You're familiar with this phone motion. You will zoom into the view and you will expand it, right? So you're magnifying the sky now. First of all, you're going to see a lot more fainter stars, aren't you? And you're going to increase the distance between the two planets because you're magnifying them by using the finger spread to zoom in. And when you do it, you get a little surprise. There's Pluto. Barely visible on that first screen, but when you expand it, some people would still love to have Pluto be a planet, right? But it's a dwarf planet for now. It's right next to Jupiter in the same sky, same night sky. Now I want you to pinch to zoom out, okay? I want to go back to the regular wide view of the sky. So just pinch and zoom out. And then we're going to take and drag that screen to face east. So now we've made a complete half turn. We started off facing west towards the sunset direction, and now we have pivoted all the way 180 degrees, half a circle, so that we now face east. E is on the bottom, and if you look about halfway up in the sky, the eastern sky, you're going to see something remarkable. Three bright stars, Altair, Deneb, and Vega, or Vega. And these three stars, if we connect them with lines, if we just draw some lines between them, they form the summer triangle. And this is a wonderful figure, very bright and large. I use my fists when I talk about distances in the sky. If you reach your fist up like this to the sky, one fist is equal to about 1/3 of the way along that triangle. So that triangle is about 3 fists long by 2 fists wide. So it's a really big thing in the sky. And we call that the summer triangle. It's made up of those 3 bright stars. There's Deneb in the Northern Cross. There's Vega in Lyra, the Harp, and Altair in Aquila, the Eagle. So they make a beautiful figure. Good place to get to know in the night sky. All right, shall we head north? You can come up in my direction. Pretend that you're up in Duluth. Slide with your finger once again until north is at the bottom of your screen. Once again, there's the horizon line. You can see some stars below it. You're like, nope, I can't see those because they're in the dark part of the sky. But you can see, if you face north with your phone, you can see the Big Dipper. There it is, right there, hanging up in the upper left in the northwestern sky. And if we shoot a line through the 2 end stars of the bowl, which are called the pointers, if you shoot a line through the pointers, they will take you straight to the North Star. There it is. That's Polaris. You probably knew that already. And the North Star is the brightest star in the Little Dipper. Here's the Little Dipper's handle, and there's the bowl. So we are now, my gosh, we've gone all directions, haven't we? West, south, east, and now north. Now I'm going to show you something really fun you can do with your phone. Turn it sideways so it's horizontal. And you're like, wow, why didn't you show me this earlier, Bob? Look, this is a much bigger chunk of the sky. Well, if you hold your phone sideways, it gives you a kind of a more expansive view of the night sky, doesn't it? You can see some additional constellations off here to the right and to the left. So that's another way to use this app. Just hold your phone sideways. Now, what I'd like to do is explore just a little bit. I want to show you some of the fun options that are available with the phone and how you can customize it. I mean, we live in this age where every single thing is customizable, right? So you can have your star chart looking a little different from everybody else's star chart, the way you like it. Maybe you don't like a whole bunch of star names, so you can get rid of the clutter. Maybe you want to get rid of the ecliptic. Go ahead, you can do all these things. We start down here. To change the settings, we go into settings. If it's an iPhone, you're going to see a little gear down there. You see that? Bottom of the phone right. And if it's an Android, there are 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. You click on that. And I hope you're all with me. This is the disadvantage of how I wish I could be there with you live, because then we could just kind of mull over this all together. So that's why I do encourage you, either during the presentation or after, to ask any questions you might have. So 2 things. First thing, if your phone for some reason is stuck on one view of the sky and it's not showing anything live, you go into settings and just make sure in the AR mode, it's set to auto. If it's set to auto, you can hold it up to the sky, and after a few seconds, it'll go live and just show you the stars and the planets wherever you point it. It will also then stop when you put your finger on it, and you can manually adjust direction to explore. But if you're not in the auto mode, you lose one or another of those functions. So just stay in auto. It should default to the auto mode. The other thing, and this is such a cool part about the phone, when you go out at night, the last thing you want is a phone that's got a big bright image, right? And I bet you can guess why. Because your eyes need time to adapt to the darkness. How do you think owls see their prey at night? They're out there in the dark, their pupils enlarge, and they can see lots of details. We see lots more stars when we allow our eyes time to adapt to the night. So this phone, I should say the app, has a night mode, a little owly eye in it. If you tap over here, that little button, you click it, just tap it once, you will put your phone into night mode. The screen should turn red. Now go and click back. Anytime you see back, it means it's going to take you back to the night sky itself. So if you go back, voila, we are in night viewing mode. At least I hope we all are. So you have red sky, red constellation outlines, and so on. And I've got the phone set now, and you can try this too for overhead. So you can just take your finger again and pull the screen down a little bit until the horizon's missing down here on the bottom. It goes below, and this is what the top of the sky would look like. And the top of the sky has constellations in it right now in late June at 11 o'clock. Hercules, the strong man, Corona Borealis, the northern crown, Boötes, the herdsman, and so on. All right. I'm hoping that was not a problem. Being able to go into settings, make sure you were in auto and that you are using a night mode when you're out with your phone. Let's go back to settings again. Click that gear or click the 3 lines. And we're going to go into the display settings. And this is where you can really customize the app for what you like the best. So go ahead, click on the display settings little arrow over here. And when you do, oh, look at this. It's like a menu. It's like going to a restaurant. Like, well, I'll take the potatoes with the butter and not this sauce. So in your little restaurant of options, you can choose to either include or get rid of the ecliptic. I've never tried the lens effects. Try that though and let me know what happens. The constellations. You noticed in my view of the sky, I kept the lines connecting the stars. You may want to too. It just makes it easier to make out the outlines of the constellations. But you can get rid of the lines too. We are going to get rid of the lines. Click that. Just tap it once. All right. And when you tap it, there you have the sky without the lines. You just have the night sky as you might actually see it. Many of us wish, at least a lot of my friends have told me, Bob, I love all these constellations you talk about, but I wish the lines were actually in the sky. And I can sympathize with them, because some of these groups of stars are faint, and they take a little time to get to know. So we have no constellation lines. In my view, you can choose any view you want, but in my view, I selected north, northwest. Down here, you can see the direction indicators once again. Let's check out another option. You can change labels. So for instance, you can take away all the labels on the stars or put them all back. And that looks something like this. Oh my gosh, what a mess, right? Probably want to zoom in to clear it up a little bit. But these are a couple of things that you can do. Let's go back in to the settings. And although I haven't done examples of every single one of these options, I will explain them for you. You already saw the lines options. Images is the mythological image of the constellation. So if you want the image of Orion the Hunter to be in the sky view, you can put the Hunter in there. Just click images, and maybe that Hunter will help you be able to make out the constellation of Orion better. You can include or exclude the Latin names of the constellations. You can include or exclude the planets, and so on. We're going to explore one more option here, and that is something called Messier Objects. Could you click that right now? If you click it, it activates the Messier Objects, and that looks like this. Those little diamonds you see represent galaxies, star clusters, and nebulas in the sky. And these are called deep sky objects or Messier objects because they were initially discovered by a French astronomer from the 18th century named Charles Messier, and he compiled a catalog of 110 of these galaxies and star clusters and so on, so that when he came across them again, he wouldn't think they were comets, because he was a comet hunter, and his little telescope at the time made all of these things just look like fuzzy blobs, which is a typical comet. So his comets are hardly famous at all, but his list of things that he wanted to forget about, very famous. So those are Messier objects. Those of you who want to explore more, who might have a telescope, can keep pinching in, and you can actually use this app, because it shows many faint stars, to help you star hop with your telescope to individual Messier objects. Here we go, jumping back in once again into the settings mode. I mentioned earlier that you can change where you view the sky from. Mine is, if you just hold your phone up, the application will, it may ask you and say, hey, can we have access to your location? Do say yes. And then it will show you your sky. But if you want to see what the sky looks like in a different place, say a place where you're going on vacation, let's say you want to go to Honolulu. One of these days, we'll all be able to get on an airplane again, right? Then you can location for Honolulu. And then when you hold the sky up there, hold the phone there, you'll see those stars, which is quite a bit different sky from what we would see here in the northern third of the US. So let's go to GPS location. Go ahead and click the arrow, and you're going to get a beautiful little globe. And I selected Chicago, and you can just click OK. There is a list that you can click on by clicking the you can either click a magnifying glass or you can click the list, and you'll get this list that shows just hundreds and hundreds of cities. Scroll through that list and you will find, I'm sure you'll find the city you're interested in or something close. And once you select that city, that becomes your location. Remember though that when you travel back home to set it again for Chicago, or if St. Charles is in here, or wherever you live in the suburban Chicago area. Otherwise, you'll keep seeing the sky as it is in Honolulu. And maybe some of you would prefer that, be on a permanent vacation star-wise. We did not explore every one of the options here because I wanted to keep this basic so that you could go out and know how to use the night mode how to customize the app to show stars, lines, names, figures, and so forth to your liking. But there's quite a bit more that this app will do. And I encourage you, especially if you're running into any problems, to click further down on the list to the user manual. I know the sound of user manual sounds terrifying. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't read. No, never. You know, I know how that feels. But I actually read this user manual. I couldn't believe how clear it was. It's really good. So if you have any questions, I do encourage you to just click on that and scroll through to the topic you're interested in and go for it. I have found that occasionally your view will lock up. If that happens, you can close the app and just start it again. If you have problem after problem after problem, I would recommend that you reinstall the app and start fresh again. And again, take a look at the user manual if you have any additional questions. And now I'm going to come back because you may have questions right now before we go to our next section this evening, where we're going to be talking about some of the awesome things that you can see in the nighttime sky just with your naked eye. I see the chat list. Okay, give me a second. Let's see. What is 11 again was one of the questions. 11 is 2300. As you get into astronomy, these things will be very familiar with you, changing over time to what's called 24-hour time. So 6 o'clock, if you want to remember, 6 p.m. in the evening is 18. And 11 o'clock is 23. So 6 is 18, 7 is 19, so on. Another question. I can't see southeast. Found it. Fantastic. I am so thrilled that you found southeast. And then we have, it does expand the field of view. Yes, exactly. It expands the field of view when you pinch in and you zoom in by spreading your two fingers on the screen. The objects, it said, Bob, can you explain what objects are Messier objects again? Well, they all start with the letter M on your screen. When you click on the Messier option and you choose to see them, and M for Messier, and then the number in the catalog. And what they are the brightest galaxies, star clusters, and nebulas in the nighttime sky. They are things that amateur astronomers, well, you don't even have, nothing fancy is required to see some of them. Some of them you can just see really well in binoculars. But they are the things that a lot of us seek once we get a telescope. We love to look at the Messier objects. You're going deeper because you're probing inside the constellations to see the beautiful gems that they contain, these deep sky objects, as they're called. What happens, Squishy Face asks, what happens when you turn off orbit lines? I don't recall orbit lines as an option, but go ahead and try it. And if you don't like it, you just go back in and put them back in, okay? You might mean constellation lines. That just gets rid of the little stick figures that you see. Instead, all you see are the stars, which is what you see on any night. And do we have any other questions? It says orbit lines. All right. Well, I will. Squishy, can you tell me what phone you're using? Is it an Android or is it an iPhone? Oh, it does say orbit lines. The orbit lines, I'll have to look into it. I have not even used that option, but I can't, what it's not showing is, give me a second here. I'm right with you, see? And hold on just a moment.
So Bob, it's Barb. It's nice to see that even the experts can get stumped.
Isn't that great?
Right, yeah. It makes us feel better.
And that's why I'm here, to make you feel better. No, it's, I use it in just the ways that I like to use, and so I've not done every one of the settings. So I'm going to take out orbit lines and see where it takes us. I honestly don't see any difference between on and off, because I'm assuming that orbit lines means planets, because planets have orbits. But I'll look into that a little bit later and see if I can answer it better. But keep it on and see if it makes a difference or not. And again, my presentation, or at least about the phone app, is primarily about the very basic things that you're turning on and off and customizing. And you can try them all out when you get a second. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's one last one there, Bob, about I don't have the direction indicators on my iPad. How can I change that?
On your iPad, I need to know, are you seeing both parts of the sky? Are you seeing the horizon? Because if the horizon, let's see, I'll try to bring it up a little closer. If you don't include the horizon in the picture, you will see that there are no direction indicators. You've hidden it. But if you pull it up so that you see some dark part on the bottom, that dark is the below the horizon line, then you'll see the direction indicator. And here I've got it pointed to the southwest. So it's possible that it just might be below. You're not including the horizon in your view. I hope that helps. Someone said that was cool with a whole lot of O's. Well, I like that. So let's see if there are other questions. By the way, I am going to you can keep playing with the app if you want. I'm going to continue with the presentation to talk about some of the things that you can see in the night sky and for which you don't need the app necessarily. So if you're all with me on that, I'm going to switch back over here to our presentation. And to me, one of the most interesting things about, or the least known, I should say, least known, most amazing sight is the Earth's shadow. And most of us have seen the Earth's shadow at one time or another when we're out in the car, maybe a big open area. Maybe you're driving through central Illinois where it's really flat, happens to be sunset or sunrise, and you look out just a little after sunset, and you see this purple, almost dark gray purple haze down at the eastern horizon opposite the sun. It almost looks like there's a storm coming or something. What you're actually seeing is the Earth's shadow on the atmosphere. So when the sun is setting behind you, you face to the east and look for that dark, it's a very interesting dark area. That's the shadow of the entire planet we live on, projected on our atmosphere. And it looks very dark. You can see it from an airplane too. It's even better from an airplane. And that's in the first 20 to 30 minutes after sunset. And after that, it kind of blends with the sky as the shadow moves up and becomes darkness. Right above the shadow, there's a very colorful feature. It's topped by, it's almost like icing on the cake. It's topped by this pink belt called the Belt of Venus, very colorful name. And the Belt of Venus is sunlight that is still shining on the stratosphere, which is the upper part of the atmosphere, and reflecting back to your eyes. So you're seeing sunlight reflected where the atmosphere is high enough to actually still catch the rays of the sun, like a tall, tall mountaintop. And below it, that dark gray Earth's shadow. Very cool sight. Here's kind of what it looks like. A little diagram to help understand it. The sun is off here on the left. Here's our horizon. There's our observer tipping forward, wants to see a little better, looking forward this way. And the shadow of the Earth comes upward as the sun goes down. It's like a teeter-totter, right? The sun goes down, shadow goes up. And that's what we see climbing in the sky, the shadow of our planet. Speaking of shadows, the moon just recently eclipsed the sun. And these things now, even if you can't see them from where you live, you can go online often and see them. On June 21st, we had an annular solar eclipse because the moon, here's the moon right here, the moon was directly between the Earth and the sun, which is this bright haze off to the right. So the moon is orbiting the Earth, and it passed directly between the Earth and the sun. It blocked out the sun, except it left a little ring around it because the moon was farther away than normal and it wasn't big enough to cover the sun. That happened on the 21st. 2 days later, the moon has moved along in its orbit. The moon moves in its orbit around the Earth about 1 fist against the sky each evening. 1 fist. So 2 evenings, the moon is scooched off to the left, enough so that from our perspective on our lovely blue planet, we see the edge of the moonlet, and that edge appears as a crescent. So tonight, and I'll show you another diagram, another picture. Tonight, if it's clear and you have a good view of the western horizon, you'll be able to see the returning crescent moon, the young, we call it the young crescent moon. The moon was a quarter way around its orbit. We call it the first quarter moon. It's the half moon. And when it moves directly opposite the sun and the Earth, so the Earth's right in the middle now, okay, this is about 2 weeks after new moon, we have full moon. And the full moons get wonderful names. Every full moon has its own name. This is the full buck moon. And that occurs on July the 4th. Here's the moon tonight, if it's clear for all of us. You just face west on Tuesday, around 10 o'clock or so at dusk, and maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock, especially for the Chicago area. And you'll see just that kind of that young crescent down there. And you'll also notice the rest of the moon is lit too, but much more faintly. The moon will work its way upward to the left. It moves left a fist a day, and it will approach the star Regulus in a couple of days. The moon is super helpful in bringing us, showing us how to get to bright stars in constellations. So it kind of points us to constellations. It's a good helper. Remember I mentioned that darker part of the moon that you see? The bright part, of course, is lit by the sun, which just grazes the edge to create the crescent. The dark part of the moon, fascinating how it's lit up. You can see the whole outline of the moon. What we're seeing is sunlight that's coming from the right there, reflecting off the Earth and its brilliant clouds and water, back out into space, towards the moon. Some of it goes off towards the moon, and then the moon reflects it back to us. And so what it really is, it's twice reflected sunlight called Earthlight. So that is the Earth-lit portion of the moon, and the other is the sunlit portion of the moon. One is lit by direct lighting, and the rest by indirect or reflected light. Very cool thing to see, that Earth shine. Now the moon's orbit is tilted. It's not flat. Sometimes you'll see diagrams of the solar system, all the planets are in a flat plane. Well, they pretty much are, but the moon is tipped 5 degrees, a little bit. And that tip means that whenever we have a full moon, or at least most of the time we have a full moon or a new moon, we don't have an eclipse because the moon misses the Earth's shadow. Sometimes it only goes through the outer part of the shadow. The Earth has 2 pieces of shadow. It's got the dark inner part of the shadow where the sun does not shine directly inside, really dark in there. It's called the Umbra. Around the outside of the Umbra is the penumbra. And this is where there's a little bit of sunlight here leaking along the edges and pouring into behind the Earth. So in that penumbra, it's not really very dark compared to the Umbra. Well, on the night of July 4th, the moon, because its orbit is tipped, is going to pass through the outer edge of the penumbral shadow. So we're going to have an eclipse on July 4th. However, the eclipse is pretty minor, but it would be wonderful if you went out and just to see if you could see that penumbral shading. Here, we'll take a look. This is what it looks like. Here's the dark center of the shadow. We're staring like behind the Earth into it. Here's the faint outer shadow, the penumbra. And here's the moon's path as it moves to the left or east in its orbit. And the best time to look for shading from the outer shadow will be right there at around 11:30 p.m. for the penumbral eclipse. I've got it right up there at the top of the screen, 11:30. So make a note of that. I bet you guys, we're gonna leap away now. We're gonna jump away from the moon. We're gonna explore what planets are out. So we're gonna take another step further from the Earth. I bet you guys, at least some of you, have seen these two planets in the evening sky. We saw them on the app, right? When we were scrolling through the different directions. If you're out at around 11:30 in late June from Kane County, and you look towards the southeast, you're gonna see brilliant Jupiter. And just to its left is another bright, what looks like a star. That's the planet Saturn. So you have two planets right next to each other in the evening sky. How nice. How easy to be able to find them like that. And Jupiter is so brilliant. There's nothing like it at all in that part of the sky. You see a brilliant star, that's Jupiter. So be sure to catch that. I like to call them the googly eyes because, I don't know, I read that book to my kids when they were younger and we had a good time with it. But they look like a pair of eyes almost staring back because they're set so close together. These two planets in the next few months will gradually approach one another. Jupiter is the closer planet to the Earth, so it appears to move faster in the sky. Saturn is much further. So over time, as they revolve around the sun, Jupiter will gain on Saturn. It will gradually move from here to here to here to here. And in December, just after sunset, those two planets are going to be so close together. I don't know if you'll be able to split them apart with your eye. You may have to use binoculars. That is called a very close conjunction, when two planets, or the moon and a planet, line up one right on top of the other. But for right now, they're googly eyes. Have a small telescope? This is Jupiter tonight in your small telescope. You can see 4 moons. They dance around, change positions each evening, and you can guess why, right? It's because they are orbiting the planet, as if we have right here in front of us a miniature version of the solar system. So the 4 brightest are called Callisto, Europa, Io, and Ganymede. As a matter of fact, Ganymede and Callisto are so far apart from Jupiter tonight that if you take a pair of 10-power binoculars, 10x, and point them there and hold them really steady, make sure your focus is super sharp, you'll be able to see them right next to the planet as 2 tiny stars, just in a pair of binoculars. A telescope will show Jupiter's cloud belts. Those winds blowing those belts, stretching the clouds into stripes, are blowing at like 250 miles an hour all the time. And of course, the highlight of all the planets, matter of fact, some people would say this is the #1 sight in the entire sky, is the planet Saturn and its spectacular rings. This photograph was taken within the past week, and it shows Saturn. See the ball there, and you can see the rings around it, and the bottom of the planet just poking out beneath the ring plane. Saturn is almost 1 billion miles away. All atmosphere. You stick your hand right through that. The rings, they look smooth to your eye through a telescope, but the rings are composed of things like iceberg size and house size chunks of dusty ice. As if Saturn had 1 billion tiny moonlets, so small that from a distance of 1 billion miles from where we stand on the Earth, those things blend together and look smooth. So look at the rings, water ice, that's what you're seeing, reflecting the sunlight. Now there are 2 more planets. We have, but for these you have to get up really early, okay? I'm talking about dawn, which would be 4 o'clock, 4:30, thereabouts. So if you face to the east, southeast, about an hour before sunrise in late June right now, and you look off to the southeast, you'll see a bright orangey pink star. That's the planet Mars. And way down near the eastern horizon, just returning to the morning sky after a wonderful many months in the evening sky, is the planet Venus. Of course, I'm showing you all these things. Your phone with the app will show all of this too. All you need to do is start the app and just point east. Move it around. If you see, by the way, if you see any object in the sky with your phone and wonder what it is, all you need to do is point the phone at it. And in that live mode, you know, without the finger stopping, just raw, holding it up. If you center that star or whatever the object is right in the view and tap it, it'll tell you what it is. So you'll know, oh, that's Arcturus. Oh, that's Vega. And obviously that's how you use an app. And it will also help you find these planets as well. Mars is getting brighter and brighter and closer and closer. This is what it looks like now. You can see one of its polar caps made of dry ice for the most part, so it's super cold. Mars will be closest in October, and it's so close it'll outshine Jupiter. It'll be spectacular when you're out trick-or-treating. Can't miss it. Big, bright, red-orange dot in the sky.
Hey, Bob.
And now I want to kind of...
Bob?
Yes.
There's a
Yes,
question
I'm
in question in the chat room about a slide that you went through just a minute ago, asking if you could explain the umbral penumbral shadow a little bit more.
Yes, this slide here.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to. In the umbral shadow, the Earth blocks the entire sun inside this narrow cone. It's kind of short, but if you're located directly behind the Earth within that cone, the Earth, the body of our planet, will block the sun completely. So when the moon is in total eclipse, it goes through the umbra during a total eclipse. And in a total eclipse, no direct sunlight reaches it. However, as you guys know, moon looks reddish orange during a total eclipse. It's still lit up somehow. What happens is that the sunlight that strikes the edge of the Earth is bent by the Earth's atmosphere. The atmosphere acts like a lens, and it bends the sunlight through the thick edge, the thick atmosphere along the edge of the Earth, and focuses a little bit of that sunlight into the umbra. And because it's grazing the edge of the planet, the sunlight is red. It's all sunrises and sunset sunlight around the edge of the planet. So a little bit of that light goes into the umbra, and the moon picks up that light, and it has a reddish orange color. That's a total eclipse. Now, if the Earth had no atmosphere, there would be no atmosphere to bend any sunlight into the umbra. And so if the moon went into the umbra with no atmosphere around the Earth, it would be pitch black. You wouldn't see it at all. Gone. You'd have to wait till it got into the penumbra. In the penumbra, in this area here, the Earth is not directly lined up with the sun, but the Earth is only blocking part of the sun from within the outer shadow, the penumbra. So it's like trying to put your fist up and block part of the sun. You get kind of a part shadow, but part sunlight. So it's a mixture of sun and shadow because, again, a piece of the sun is still shining in, even though you're blocking half of it, we'll say. And that part light creates a very faint shadow. So penumbral eclipses are kind of different. They're pale gray looking instead of black or deep reddish orange. I hope that helps to answer the question. And there it is again, you can see it, pardon me. Well, we'll continue forward. Sorry. I'm going the other, now I'm lost. We'll get back. Oh dear. Hold on. There's only one way to get back, and that is to go back to the beginning here of where we ended up. Let's go back to Mars. Okay. Oh, dear. No. Pardon me, stay with me. Oh, dear. I apologize for that. So I mentioned Mars being close in October, it'll outshine Jupiter. And one of the last topics I want to talk about, because I'd love for you to see this, is the Milky Way. And I know how difficult it can be to see the Milky Way from near Chicago, certainly from within Chicago. But if you recall, when we took our phones and pointed them east, we came across the summer triangle. Here it is again. This is on a star map, a different star map. There they are. And through the summer triangle, you will see this haziness that you can see in this image. That is the Milky Way, the band of the Milky Way. Here's a photograph of it. And as you can tell in the picture, while it looks smoky and hazy to your eye, the Milky Way is actually made of billions of stars, about at least 250 billion stars. And a camera and a time exposure begins to show it. This is a picture I took a few miles north of my house one very dark night when there was no moon in the sky.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Bob, it's Barb. I think you need to reshare your screen. We're not seeing that anymore, only the video of you.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I noticed that the screen sharing stopped for some reason. I thought it had continued again.
No, I think if you just restart it, it'll be fine.
All right. Might be easier said than done because there we go. Let's share again.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we see it now.
You
it's
see
all
it
good.
Now? All right, good.
Yes, we do.
Did you get the previous picture that showed the, well, I can show it from here too, the summer triangle. You might
yeah, we
remember
missed that one.
You did, okay. On your phone, do you remember that when we face east, we saw that large triangle in the sky, and that was called the summer triangle. Here is a picture with the summer triangle. You may have already spotted it here. There's Vega, there's Deneb, and there's Altair. These three stars form the summer triangle, just like that. And this is the northern half of the Milky Way. So you look to the eastern and northeastern sky when it gets dark out to see this. It's very spectacular in June, especially when there's no bright moon in the sky. What you're seeing here between the summer triangle, that is the band of the Milky Way galaxy. And although it looks kind of hazy, if you've ever seen the Milky Way with your eye before, it looks smoky and cloudy, but it's actually made of billions of stars, at least 250 billion. And I don't even want to try to count all these stars that you can just see with a common camera and a time exposure. So we're going to talk about seeing the Milky Way and how you might see it too. And also why it looks like a band in the sky. Keep that image in your mind's eye of that band stretching across the east. Again, the best time comes up in the east as soon as it gets dark out. It's time to look for the Milky Way this time of year. Turns out that the sun and all the planets happen to lie in the flat plane. It's sort of like a pizza in a way of the Milky Way galaxy. Here we are, right here in a little bit of a spiral arm coming out in the galaxy. We are 27,000 light years from the center of this massive system of stars. And there's star clusters in it, and there's nebulas where stars are born, and all of those good things. So we are about halfway from the center to the edge of the Milky Way, and we are right inside it, nice and flat. I'll show you. Here's our galaxy right here. My favorite toy is the Frisbee. And our galaxy is kind of Frisbee shaped, except it has kind of a bulge in the middle there. And we are right within the plane of the Frisbee, right in there, right inside. So when we look through the plane of the galaxy, as we look through along that plane where all the stars are concentrated, they stack up. They stack up to form a narrow band because the galaxy is flat, remember. It's like a pizza, kind of. And as they stack up from near to far, they form a gauzy, hazy band, narrow band across the sky. If you look above the band, I'm getting some strange drawings on my thing. I don't know if people can see that, but if you look above the band, you're looking above the plane of the galaxy. And if you look below the band, you're looking below the plane of the galaxy. If you look above and below the galaxy's plane, let me get my Frisbee again. Since this is where all the stars are in this narrow disk, if you look above it or below it, you're looking into directions where there are almost no stars. And so it thins out very fast, and that creates the effect of a band. Here's what the Milky Way looks like from inside the Milky Way. It's very flat, you can see here. And there in the center, it has a bulge. There's the sun and the planets about halfway from the center to the edge. During the summertime, we look towards the center of the galaxy. And in that direction, there are more and more stars, far more stars than when we look the other way in the winter. And that's why the summertime Milky Way is a lot brighter than the wintertime. If someday, I don't know if we'll ever be able to do this, but if we could get in a rocket ship and shoot straight above the galaxy so we could look down, then we'd really be able to see what a magnificent spiral galaxy we live in. There's a big bright bar of old stars in the center and spectacular spiral arms dotted with star clusters and nebulas. It's beautiful, but we're stuck in the plane. It gives us a beautiful band of the Milky Way, but we can't really see the shape. We can't see the arms because we're right inside. There are lots of other galaxies in the sky. It's an estimate, scientists estimate there are like 2 trillion galaxies. This is one of the closest, brightest galaxies to the Milky Way, and it resembles the Milky Way too. It's called the Andromeda Galaxy. Here it is, just like that. And it has little satellite galaxies that revolve around it. We also have satellite galaxies that go around the Milky Way, called the Magellanic Clouds. You can't see them here in the northern hemisphere, but they are visible down in the southern hemisphere. So how do you see the spectacular galaxy of ours? How do you get away from light pollution and get to a place, even if it's just once in a while, that you could easily access in order to really appreciate the magnificence of the night sky? Well, there's a wonderful resource online, and it's called the Light Pollution Map. Pretty basic, right? Great title. And it's available at lightpollutionmap.info. You can see it down there to the right on the image. I have put a little push pin there for St. Charles, and we're going to zoom in now. You see all this pink and purple and red? Those are areas that are heavily light polluted, and the most light polluted ones are the pink ones. You can just recognize the cities. There's Minneapolis, Chicago, obviously. We've got Atlanta down there and so forth. But let's zoom in to see St. Charles a little bit better. Here it is at the upper right. What's wonderful about this is that you can really keep zooming and zooming on the map, and it includes a complete grid of roads. So let's say it's a perfect night, the moon's a crescent or there's no moon at all, and you want to go out and see the Milky Way. You can plan a trip. And I've planned 2 trips for you. You could take your own way, but I was looking and I thought, what would I do if I was in St. Charles area, Batavia, and I wanted to see a dark sky? Well, here's one way to do it. You can start there and head south to Morris, and then west, LaSalle, Princeton, into this area. When you look at the map, the areas that are green are moderately dark, where you would start to see the Milky Way. And if they're blue, it's a rural sky, where you would really be able to appreciate the beauty, how many more stars you'd see there. So this little jaunt is about 125 miles. Wow, that's kind of a long way, isn't it? I think there's maybe a faster way. You can also start here in the western suburban area, and you can drop south along this highway that will take you down to Morris and keep going to Dwight, and then you hang a left there and you drop down to this rural sky area. This is almost better because you're south of Chicago, so that when you look this way, where I put the arrow in this direction, east, you'd be able to see the Milky Way so much better. So I encourage you to use this map. It's just fun to explore too, to see where the really darkest areas on the planet are. Some of the darkest areas happen to be not far from where I live, about 110 miles or so north of here. In northern Minnesota, it's truly one of the darkest areas on the continent. It's called Voyageurs National Park. So that's a beautiful spot. And I've got one more thing that doesn't require you having to drive anywhere to see a beautiful sky. You can see this right from your porch, your deck, wherever. Another conjunction is happening. And this one, you face to the southeast. That seems to be our favorite direction, doesn't it, this time? Around 11 o'clock, Sunday, July the 5th. So, and you will see the moon, which is 1 day past full, and it's going to line up and kind of look like Mickey Mouse here with ears, or a rabbit, right there. Make a nice little tight triangle. Got two bright planets, one big bright moon. It should look really cool. And one final thing that I have wanted to mention to you, and I'm going to update you anytime you come to my blog. I'm going to give you updated reports on where to look and good maps. But I wanted to alert you to the fact that we have two potentially bright comets coming in July. So we have that conjunction, and we also have Comet Neowise and Comet Lemon. They're headed up in our direction. Come mid-July, both comets will be visible at the same time in the evening sky. Comet Lemon, gonna need binoculars. Comet Neowise, which is named, by the way, for a spacecraft, which is the Near-Earth Object Infrared Explorer spacecraft, which discovered the comet. That might become visible with the naked eye. It might become as bright as the stars in the Big Dipper. So that's not bad. In either case, I encourage you to go out and bring binoculars, and I'll have great maps and more maps for you on my AstroBot blog as we get closer to that time. And finally, I love lightning bugs, or fireflies. Maybe you do too. This is one of the joys of being outside and looking up. Not only are you appreciating and part of this wilderness overhead, but you're also taking in nature on the ground around you, the sounds of the night, the smells of the night, and also some of the other lights of the night. And this time of the year, I'm not sure if it's by you at the moment, but certainly it is up here in Duluth. The fireflies are just incredible. This is a time exposure showing you lots of fireflies just going wild in a grassy field. And with that, I'm going to come back to you. And I am here for any questions you might have. I don't know if you want to do audio on the questions, Barb, or would you like me to just read over here on the chat?
So you've covered everything of substance in the chat. There's quite a few Girl Scout comments that are more like, yeah, or great job, but you've pretty much answered everything. So I think I will unmute everyone. And if there's any last minute questions, you can ask them out loud to Bob. So
yeah, out loud is nice too, because we're kind of together.
A little bit more of a community feeling. So thank you. Great job, Bob.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
So does anyone have any last questions for Bob? Ms. Fox.
I'm not on mute.
I see some questions in the chat though. What direction is the constellation Virgo in? because it's my zodiac sign. Well, if you use your phone, that app that I showed you, you will see that it's off to the southwest. So it's not far from the constellation Leo, the lion. And it has a bright star in it called Spica. And it's out right now, as soon as it gets dark out in the evening, off in the southwestern sky.
I need to see it because I'm the one who. I need to see it.
Is that Virgo's your constellation?
Yeah, it is.
Make sure that you have it set so that you can see the names of the constellations. Click on, in the display settings, make sure you click on Latin names, and then it'll name the constellations for you. How many satellite galaxies are there is another question. And satellite galaxies of the Milky Way, you know, I've kind of lost count, I have to be honest. I want to say there are at least a half a dozen. They're the two bright clouds you can see in the southern hemisphere, but there's a whole bunch of fainter ones, and they're discovering new satellite galaxies of the Milky Way like all the time. I'd be curious if anybody's going to try to do a road trip. You are. Hey, did you find Virgo yet?
I'm in the southeast right now. Is when I'm
It's in the southwest.
Oh, okay.
All right, it's below that bright star called Arcturus. So if you have the star names up, you can look for Spica. If you have the constellation Latin names, you can look for Virgo.
Okay.
Is there a black hole in the middle? Do you want me to keep answering, Barb?
Sure, yes,
Okay. Is there a black hole in the middle of the galaxy? Yes, there's a black hole in the middle of the galaxy. You know, it's amazing. In just about every large galaxy we look at, and the Milky Way is kind of a big one, we find a black, they call them supermassive black holes because they are just filled up with matter. The one in the Milky Way has a mass, which is material, 4 million times that of the sun. So imagine 4 million suns, crush them into a ball and stick it in the middle of the galaxy. And the gravity of so much matter crushed together causes it to pull in the light. You know, not even light can escape. And that's why it's black. You can't see it, but you can tell it's there because it has gravity. And things in the center of the galaxy are whipping around what looks like absolutely nothing. So we have a big black hole there, yes. And I'm just looking quickly here at any other questions.
There's one at the very bottom. I heard the Middle Fork River in Illinois is the first dark sky park here.
Have
you
I been there?
Mm-hmm.
No, I have not. I have not been to the Middle Fork River. I'm glad to hear that it is a dark sky park. There's a lot of effort underway to make dark sky parks and dark sky regions because people are starting to realize we're losing the night sky. So, well, who is this? Somebody is on looking at me. Did you have a question? That's Lulu. It says,
I don't know if Lulu did, but there is another one about the, could you repeat the site that you like for the dark sky map?
Yeah, the dark sky map is just a great site. It's called lightpollutionmap.info. So a little bit different ending on it, but it's lightpollutionmap.info.
I'm about to put that up.
So it's a great spot. It takes about, at least on my computer, it takes about 20 seconds to load that site, and then you can start moving around and traveling all over the place. And are there any questions about using the phone app that I could answer? The main thing to remember is that when you hold it up, you point it anywhere you want, at anything you want, and then you can tap and it'll tell you what it is or what constellation it is. Or you can manually control it with your finger, and you can manually set it for whatever city you like too. Hi, Lulu. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any. And where is your blog? That's another question. The blog is, you could just Google Astro, second word, Bob, Astro Bob, and I update it regularly. And I also answer questions there if you have anything like you might think of afterward, like, oh, I should have asked this, or I'm using the app and I got a problem. I'm happy to answer any question you might have. You just type in a question in the comments section.
That would be great. And if they wanted to purchase one of your books, Bob, where would they do that?
You can get them on Amazon and also at Barnes & Noble. So you can get them at a regular bookstore too. But certainly they're available on Amazon, bn.com, Barnes & Noble, and indiebooks.com too.
Great.
Somebody has another question. Are people still finding? I love all of your questions, by the way. This is the most fun part. Are anybody still finding constellations? You know, you and I can go and make our own constellations. Sometimes I hook things together to make fun patterns. I've always liked to do that. But there are only 88 constellations, and they're all like states in the U.S. There are 50 states, right? Nobody's making any new states. The constellations all got their names, and everything was done formally back in 1930. And so since 1930, there have been no new constellations added or changes made. Every constellation has a border around it, very sharp-edged border, rectangular type borders, just like certain Western states, if you're thinking Nevada or Wyoming, they're drawn similar. So yeah, I'm afraid it's stuck at 88, but you can make as many as you want with your friends. I have been to the Dark Sky Park in Michigan. That is good news. Good to hear it, Sarah. I know that I believe that was the first one in our region. Has there been any sign of life in space? Well, we got this planet Earth. We know that it seems like a good spot for life. But you know what? We have not detected any signs of life yet in space. We are most interested in Mars because you can get there and you can hunt for things and even bring things back to the Earth so that we can study them carefully for potential signs of life. And I would say it's one of those places in the solar system that's really good to look for it. There are a couple of other moons that are great places to look for signs of life too. One of the moons of Saturn, called Enceladus, is a good place. It's got warm water inside of the moon and salt and stuff. And another moon that's good is Europa. That's one of Jupiter's moons. So those are potential places. But no, sadly, we have not found any life beyond the Earth at this point. And for all we know, it may be the only life in the universe. I doubt it. I think there's more. But we have to wait and see for that discovery. There's this very specific question about the light pollution map that I'm afraid I can't take the time to answer because it would involve digging down and switching screens. It's about how light pollution drops off around Grand Island. It's possible it just gets really dark there because you're moving out into a lake potentially, but I don't know for a fact. I'd have to open up the map and study. And Erin Barry is raising her hand.
Yeah, Erin, I've unmuted you, but you'll have to unmute yourself too.
Okay. Once I put the phone up, it doesn't show me anything. It just shows me what I scrolled with my finger.
Oh, that's great, Erin. What you have to do is you can wait a few seconds and not touch the phone. So just let it be. You know, don't. Oh, I know what you do.
It's just, like not showing me.
Let me see it. Just hold it real steady right now. All right, very good. You are set for a specific time. You're set for a certain time. Go ahead and touch the now button in the upper left.
Okay.
All right, give it a few seconds and then hold it up to the sky. You're being very helpful here. I can see your phone really clearly. Thank you so much. Hold the phone up and move it around, and it should start to show you. Whoop, point it away from me. Sometimes it takes a second.
Hasn't been moving.
Not moving yet. Then what I want you to do is this. Can you go and click the little gear on the bottom there so that you can go into the display? Ah, I see what the problem is right away. Remember I mentioned that you should put it on auto? It just says AR.
Okay, it's on auto.
Very important to keep it on auto. So is it on auto now? All right, now click the back button. You got it back. You'll have to give it a couple Is it working now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So if that ever happens again, and that sometimes we just forget and we touch the wrong button, just make sure it's on auto and it'll always let you show. Okay, thanks, Aaron, for that question. That was great. I can keep answering questions. Are we okay, Barb?
It's up to you, Bob. I don't want to impose on your time, but yes, it'd be great.
Okay.
The kids have a lot of good questions.
I love the question from Lulu. Are you an astronaut?
I know.
Lulu, no, I am not an astronaut. How much I would love to be an astronaut. Yes, if NASA called me up and said, Bob, we know you're an old guy, but heck, we'd like you to be an astronaut just to be an experiment. I'd be like, yeah, I think I'd do it. I'd go and take a trip to the space station any minute. So I thought about when I was your guys, Lulu, when I was your age, I really did want to be an astronaut. But at the time, I remember they said, well, you had to have perfect vision. And I was wearing glasses when I was a young guy, so I was marked off the list. I don't think that's a requirement anymore. So I think you should think about being an astronaut. Has anyone ever been to a different moon besides our moon? Well, we've never landed on any other moons except our moon, and we landed there 6 times. We have taken and flown spacecraft to Jupiter, to Saturn, to Uranus, to Neptune, and we've taken close-up pictures of those moons. But no one has actually set foot yet on another moon except our own. Let's see. I hear strains of Major Tom. Okay, thank you for that.
Do you attend space camp?
Do you have a favorite? Do you attend space camp? No, I've not attended space camp. Space camp is my front yard. That's where I go to space camp. I just go out there and I look up at the night sky. But I would encourage you, there are, especially once we get past the virus, there are wonderful space camps for kids to go to really learn about space, and it might inspire you to be an astronaut. And do I have a favorite scientist? Oh, man, I have so many favorite scientists. I hate to pick the easiest ones. I really do like Einstein. But there's a woman scientist whose book I read, who studied seeds in biology, and she was wonderful. I can't think of a favorite right off, so I'll just say Albert Einstein. I've read a lot about him. I love relativity theory and kind of what it all means. Oh, Lulu, another great question. Why are you're just, it's a terrifically difficult question. The question is, does space ever end? And that is an open question. How about that for an answer? Space may be infinite. We don't know for sure, but we cannot detect an edge right now to space. So it goes on for all we know, trillions of light years. So we can only see out so far, and that so far is billions of light years, but it may not have an edge.
Well, it looks like that's it, Bob. I think you've answered all of those great questions. So.
Well, thank you, and thank everybody for being patient when we had that little glitch there. And it's been a lot of.
I would like to show you something. If you click on a planet on here, if you click on a planet, there's like a little tree button that has a house and a moon shaped on it, like right down there. And if you click on that, you can actually go discover it. Yes. And you can look at it.
Yep.
Very cool.
And that is one of the cool things. That's, like I had mentioned earlier, there are so many parts of that app that I didn't even touch on tonight, because otherwise we would have spent another half an hour on it. But what I really love here is, Aaron, is that you're exploring it exactly as I'd hoped, that you're taking the phone, trying things out and seeing where you can go. So press all the buttons and explore as much as you like. Yes, you can put, there's one, go to the moon. If you click on the moon and then click that little house thing, you can spin the moon around and look at the sky the way it looks from the moon.
Cool.
So it's
any planet.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
everyone, this is so great. If you want to watch again, I'm gonna send everyone a link to the recorded version of the webinar, so you can go back and look at the slides again and listen. And Bob shared his blog with you. He's generous enough to say he'll answer questions there. So I think we're gonna end it for this evening. Thank you so much, Bob. It was great.
Thank you very much for having me, Barb. And all of you guys out there, really appreciate that you came, that you attended, and I hope you have a clear night tonight. And I think it's supposed to be clear so that you can actually go out with that phone and look at the sky and see if it actually works, right? Try it. All right. Thank you all.
Yep. Bye, everybody.